Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 171. Yes, yes, yes. Jack is busy, probably sweating right now, moving kids' stuff into college dorms. And Adam is smiling because he was doing that yesterday. Oh, and I'm smiling because I haven't had to do it for quite a while. So um, anyway, you guys know what the drill is. You can harass us in the chat. You can hit us up on the Q&A, and I've got some polls, which will be good. And the theme today is about helping you find somebody outside the jar to help you read the label, because it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar, meaning outside perspectives matter. And both Adam and I have been involved in and are involved in multiple peer-to-peer groups. We'll talk about that. I'm wearing the Lead Baller t-shirt because that's how I met Jimmy Coleman and the Lead Baller team, because we were in a C12 roundtable a number of years ago. And it's been really fun to see him continue to grow and the relationships formed in these things. Not all of them, but a lot of relationships that I've still got that are really good friends are because of that, and because of some of these roundtable and peer-to-peer groups, or even coaching. So before we jump into the poll, as some people are still getting on here, Adam, surely you've got a rant on anything that's going on in Washington, or happen to deal with business, or maybe an update on your Ford Lightning pickup.
Yeah, so I'll hit on all the above, and I've got, depending on how you want to enter into the topic on having an outside advisor, I will not touch on that yet, but I've got a few things to say about that from my own experience and my own peer group meeting that happened yesterday or on Tuesday. But yeah, so just a reminder for everybody, that because we're in the middle of rolling into doing a little bit more intensive tax planning for clients now, at this time of the year. And it's just a reminder that, the current, the current tax rates that we enjoy, which is basically paying 80 cents on the dollar for most of us, are set to expire in 2026. So, I mean, when I was saying that 2-3 years ago, that didn't seem like that big of a deal, but as Gary referenced, I just took my youngest son and dropped him off at college. Well, where did that 18 years go? So it's like one of those deals where it's like, it's going to be here, before we know it. So, that's one thing. And at the same time, just remembering that the depreciation benefits, where you get accelerated depreciation right up front via bonus depreciation, those are also rolling back, in real time. So we're still under an 80% regime, but that scales back, over time, to where it's eventually, effectively phased out, as an item. So just be keeping that in the back of your mind for the folks that are on the call, as they're just thinking about, well, it's always going to be great. I'm always going to wake up and Miles is always, no, Miles is not always going to be there, So the tax rate version of that is no, we will probably not always enjoy the rates that we're currently under. And if Congress doesn't do anything, then they're going to expire in 2026 anyway, regardless of the administration that's in power. And, if I'm reading the tea leaves, my belief is, Gary, I know you'll be shocked to hear me say this, but, somehow, regardless of administration, your and my tax rate is going to go up. And somehow they're going to tell me that they're really doing it as a benefit for me. Without being honest and saying, look, we ran up some debt, we got to pay this crap off. Instead, they're going to tout it as like a, the Gary Fry, family incentive benefit that, gives you blah, 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 that you're never going to use, but you just had a 10% tax rate increase. Sorry about that. So just, be thinking about that for the future. I think in terms of, recessionary headwinds, we haven't really seen too much in the way of slowdowns. There's been some pockets of customers that are very isolated and specific where we've seen slowdowns, but nothing from a broader trend. So we'll see. And then, lastly, on the Ford Lightning update, Gary, because you're not the only one that forwarded me the F-150 hidden cost of blah blah. It's like, look, dude, what I would say about driving an electric vehicle is that, if you want to put your head in the sand and not be aware of all the information that's out there about how difficult it is, it doesn't matter if it's a Tesla or a Ford F-150 or whatever. Like, it's not super amazing to drive it across the country for long distances. And what I would equate it to is, would you drive, Gary? Would you leave from Anchorage, Alaska, with a three-quarter empty gas tank,
Nope.
to drive to like the next remote destination, hoping that there's a chance that you might find a gas station along the way? Because there are gas stations in most places. The freaking car tells you where to go recharge. If you ignore that, you are doing so at your own peril. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the F-150.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. When I saw that article, I don't know if it was from some Canadian publication, I think, but I guess it had made the rounds. I think it was on CNBC, blah, blah, blah. But this guy, yeah, he kind of got stranded up north by Chicago in his F-150 Lightning. Yeah, but I think that's right. I just thought that was interesting. So another quick little headline before we get into a poll for y'all. Did you know that there are 51 Charlotte area companies that made the Inc. 5000 list?
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
And guess what?
What's that?
Opcala, they're good friends of ours, and their clients, they're on there. And so
That's awesome.
I think it's really cool. So I should have worn my Opcala. I guess I'll have to wear Opcala t-shirt next time, because they did provide me some swag. I love those guys. We love helping companies grow, and we love seeing whether they're our clients or not. We don't really care. If you're in Charlotte and you're in our areas, we want to see you grow, because that is the lifeblood of our economy, not Bank of America. And not trying to be disparaging, because it used to be an employer of mine, but I'm a lot more passionate about privately held businesses. So what we're going to do is I'm going to launch a poll. And the poll is having someone outside the jar. So here is the poll. First question: are you part of a peer-to-peer group? Yes, no, or I think I need to find one. The second question, and we'd like to have as much participation from the gallery, and I can see who you are, so don't make me call out your names. Which of these groups are you familiar with? Vistage, EO, YPO, Organizational Excellence, C12, Pinnacle Forum, Tiger 21, MasterMind, and there are many others actually. And the third question is, have you had an outside coach, and you may have one currently? Yes, no, or I think I need to find one. And we're not here to sell you anything on any of these. What I really need to do is find what the audience is experiencing, so that we can talk a little bit more about it. Ooh, this is interesting. So Vistage is pretty running away, man. That's pretty good. Pinnacle Forum. Yeah, I was a part of Pinnacle Forum up in Cleveland, Ohio. I didn't know if we even had one here in Charlotte. So anybody that's in Pinnacle Forum, you can hit us up and let us know if there is one, a local chapter. I really enjoyed the guys that I got to meet in that. Not very many people have had outside growth coaches. A lot of people. Question 2. Yeah, you're right, Cindy. Need to have none of the above for question number 2. So sorry about that. You could just put something in there so it doesn't eliminate you. Sorry about that, Cindy. I had to put this together on the fly. All right. Well, this is pretty interesting. So more people have not been part of a peer-to-peer group. One person thinks they need to find one. I think what we'll do is we'll talk about kind of the nuances of some of those, and we can get into some specifics. But what I love to do is help people find the right ones. And one that isn't in this list is CEO Focus. So Jeff Wolfberg, sent a number of folks to Jeff Wolfberg, and he has some peer-to-peer, what he calls advisory boards, where they're typically smaller companies, but he's really good. He's owned a number of companies as well. So I'm going to go ahead and last call. Anybody that hasn't voted, please do hit us up. I'll give you 30 seconds, and then I'm going to go close the poll, and then I'll share the results with all of you. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and end it, and I'm going to share it with all of you right now. So can you see this, Adam?
Yep.
All right, cool. So 4 out of the 10 that responded, yes, part of a peer-to-peer group. 5, no. 1 has said, yeah, I need to find one. We can help you try to find the right group for you. The bulk, Vistage, organizational excellence. So that's part of the Sandler training platform that kind of mixes EOS, which is Entrepreneur's Operating System. If anybody's read Gino Wickman's book, Traction, it's something that we use within our company. And we're also learning organizational excellence, which is really more of a peer-to-peer group versus a coach and team format. Pinnacle Forum, C12. Papa Joe, I know you're in that. Let's see if Papa Joe's in here. I don't see him, but he's part of C12. It's more of a faith-based thing. Tiger 21, we had some guys. Saw Gerald was in here, and we were in private equity group together. He's down in Houston, and we had some guys that were in Tiger 21, some kind of bigger hurdles to be part of that from a financial standpoint. Have you had an outside growth coach? 2 of the 10, 8 have not. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we can talk about kind of all of those things and the benefits, etc. So Adam, I know that you've been really greatly impacted by Dave Zerfas in particular, who is your Vistage chair. Why don't you give us some of your thoughts on what's going on there?
Yeah, no, so it's a good question, Gary. And I appreciate you teeing up the topic, because, on the one hand, it could sound, self-serving, but we're really not meaning for it to be, because I think the reality of what I've seen with coaching and memberships of peer organizations is, you got kind of the one mentality, which is, well, I didn't wake up in the morning, looking for 50 grand a year to spend. Like nobody put this as a line item on their budget, and at the same time, so it's easy to view it in that context. I mean, and at the same time, nobody ever, no code, like very few coaches or organizations are gonna put a guarantee on the line either that says, Gary, if you join, I guarantee you will make 10 times the money. Because they can't guarantee it for the reasons that and at the same time, everybody's got the story, even if it's not their own story of, they've been burned by the consultant. Hey, let me do this. Oh God, that sounds like it's going to solve all my problems, and it's going to make my dinner too. Geez, where do I sign up for that? It's going to be amazing. And it turns out that it's just, it's just flim flam. I mean, I fell victim to a lot of that my first year, and so that's why I'm personally always very dubious of, sales and marketing, lead generation, type consultants for that very reason, because I got burned a lot in the beginning, and it's like I've been permanently scarred by it, every since then. But at the same time, it just makes me a more discriminating buyer. But the way that I've always viewed this is that, like, look, when you want to get in shape, like you're focused on your physical health, there's only one way to do that, and it's the tag team of diet and exercise. And you ignore all of those, you ignore that at your own peril. Like, in other words, if you try to do it in a way that does not involve diet and exercise, you're doomed for not producing a long-term sustainable benefit. So when you make the decision, I'm going to be committed to this, I basically have a couple routes I can take. I can try to wing it with no research at all. I can do the bro science, men's health, Google the internet. Surely there must be a pill out there that's going to solve this problem for me, Gary. When I was still drinking, I used to frequently look up, can I get a 6-pack abs and still drink a 6-pack a day? On page 6 of Google, I could finally find my answer, which basically said, sure, if you want to work out 4 hours a day. I'm like, intriguing. Perhaps I could find the time to do that. Versus everything else that said, you might want to consider giving up drinking if that's really what your goals. So that's one option. Another option could be, you kind of suck it up and pay for some advice that's gonna help you out. And is their advice going to be any different than anything else that you could have read in the bro science or figured out? Yeah, absolutely not. Like, this is not rocket science. It's 80% diet, 20% exercise, and the exercise needs to be structured in such a way that it's, so much cardio, so much weights, so much stretching and mobility. The diet's real straightforward. It's some combination of calories combined with the quality of what you're eating. Like, it's not rocket science, but there's a difference between that and hiring somebody to actually help you out. But even then, when you go into it, my wife was a personal trainer when we first got married, Gary. Not some people don't know that. And there were people who literally would pay her to go sit and drink coffee with her.
Wow.
I mean, like that was it. It's like, hey, got your workout program ready? You read it now? Can we just sit here? Are you, like, you really need to get up there and do something? Like, it's ridiculous that you're paying me to just drink coffee down in the. Well, yeah, I know, but that's what I needed. So like, at the same time, assuming that you hire somebody that's competent with a track record of results, you actually have to utilize them in the intended format, which is, you're really going to say, I surrender, Gary. I surrender, and I'm willing to do what you tell me to do without questioning it. That is the magical answer. And even when you tell me that, even when I tell you it's not going to work and I don't have faith or belief that it's going to work, I'm going to trust in you that it is going to work. And then eventually I'll start seeing the results of that. And, this topic, when you apply, yeah, thanks, Joe. Absolutely, man. Would you pay me to have coffee with you? Absolutely. Anytime, buddy. The same concept applies, whether it's your physical health, the same concepts applies to spiritual health. Wow, here's a list of things that it says if I do them, I'm going to live a pretty good life. But boy, they seem kind of hard, and I sure don't want to do them. Isn't there another option available, Gary? Isn't there a pill for that? That'll make people. You made me get along with people. No, there's not. It's hard work. In business is not any different, from that standpoint in terms of finding a coach, because otherwise, like, how am I've never run a company this size before. Like, I didn't run a company at Ernst and Young. I worked for a company, so I don't know what I'm doing, any better than the next guy, and every time we grow, I'm suddenly, you know, I've never run a 3 location, CPA firm, let alone, a 20 or 30 location CPA firm, which is the destination that we're trying to go to. So with all that in mind, how am I, how could I possibly figure, how can I know, how to do this without seeking outside learned counsel, to effectively help me accomplish 2 things. And I promise Tyrade's going to be done here in a second, Gary. But basically, I look at this as you're trying to help me to do 2 things. One is get there faster than I would have left to my own devices. That's number one. Can you accelerate, what I'm doing? And secondly, can you help me do it in a way that either makes me more efficient in doing it, so I get a better result, than trying it on my own, or alternatively, helps me avoid mistakes, along the way. And I'll give you 2 examples, both that involve coaching. One, going back on the physical side of things, like I know how to swim. Like, I was taught how to swim a long time ago, and at the same time, I can get in the pool and be swimming laps, and my heart rate feels like it's about to explode. Like, it's the equivalent of, like, when I run, I'm running at, like, threshold pace. And when I look at my threshold pace, which is pretty high pace, it's like, is it as fast as, somebody who's, amazing at running and runs up? No, it's not. But is it a respectable, good middle of the pack, for my age group? You damn right it is. Of the people that are reporting on Garmin, I'm doing okay. Swimming, no. Like, I'm doing controlled drowning while someone is working effortlessly, next to me. So, I finally sucked it up and asked for help and got some swimming lessons, from one of our clients. And, a couple little tweaks, all of a sudden it's like, I shaved 30 seconds off my 100 time, which is a pretty dramatic.
That's unbelievable.
With the lower
That's a
effort
lot.
level. Yeah, it's like, it was so bad, there was no room but, to go up. But anyway, that was just amazing. From a coaching standpoint, same thing happened from a sales perspective. I had, before I went through Sandler sales training myself, I would put tons of time into a prospect, uncovering all these findings and, all sorts of cost justifying ways to pay for myself, only to have them say no. And I'm like, I don't understand, but I found out, like, it's crazy that you would say no to me. And, finally what that class taught me was, well, my method was all wrong. I didn't ask a painful question up front called, well, look, dude, are you ready to fire your CPA? Because that's where this conclusion's headed. So if you're not willing to fire your CPA, then there's not really a whole lot of reason for us to, like, you're a nice person, I'll always be here for you, but there's not a lot of reason for us to talk. That I ended up getting, like, the year that I switched that as a tactic and started doing it up front, I think my sales results tripled in that year in less time. So it just, like, to me, that was like, okay, that's all the more information that I need, that I didn't have all the answers, because I was using my brute force Ernst and Young, let me demonstrate the value, givers gain, all that kind of stuff ahead of time, without asking the fundamental question of, like, are you just kicking the tires, or is somebody getting fired around here? Are we 8th grade dancing, or are we really going out? on this? Are we slap fighting, or are we throwing down? You know, what's actually happening here? Yeah. So anyway, and then, you know, last thing I'll say is that, you know, there is something to having somebody from the outside look in, and it's really comes down to, you know, if you've ever been a CEO and you've been like, I'm not getting any more input from my team, and they seem to just be agreeing with everything that I say. Well, of course they are. You're the boss. You know, there's something to having a third party in the room that can draw out from your own team what you cannot get. You know, does that need to be permanent? No, but it at least provides a safe space that Gary can call my BS without having to worry about whether or not I'm going to jump down Gary's throat, because there's a neutral third party available, you know, to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that the sharing is within a safe space. So with that in mind, I'll shut up, Gary. But that's been my experience thus far as a person who you know, has personally spent a lot, you know, organizationally. You know, we spend about, we'll land this year probably about, just put it in context, you know, we'll land this year probably at about 12 million bucks. And we will have spent on consulting and training of stuff that I would have viewed as discretionary, like not required to maintain our licenses, but designed to help us improve organizationally. You know, we will have spent about 150 grand, you know, as a number, you know, between and that's not even counting the time, because we own the Sandler franchise. It's not even counting the time of, you know, going through the Sandler training. If you did that, it's more like the equivalent of about 400 grand, you know, in terms of improvement related initiatives.
Yeah, that's good. So I brought in my first coach, and actually it wasn't me, as my partner, who found me to become his partner. And this guy was a sales guru because my partner was on his deathbed. We've probably talked about it more than once here, but he was $10,000 a day in 1991, 23 grand a day in today's money. Plus you paid him upfront, plus in full, plus you paid all of his travel expenses at a certain level of hotel and first class only from Richmond, Virginia. Now, the reason I'm even saying that is like, well, why would you do that? Well, because we were desperate. We were on our deathbed. My partner was like, you know, barely breathing financially, and really wasn't, and didn't have the money to go bankrupt even then. And so it was a Hail Mary. The guy helped us. We came in second out of a shootout against 4 other firms, pays the same as last. So it was a big goose egg. But what I learned at that tender age, you know, when I wasn't even quite 30 yet, was having somebody outside that, one, knows what they're doing. We were clear on what our objectives were. We had pain, and usually there's pain involved, but you have to understand your why, and you have to understand what are your metrics of success. Well, what I learned very quickly is this guy gave us courage and confidence. Like, we could have found anything. Like, Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet, so it wasn't available, but we could have gone to the library and we could have made a whole bunch of phone calls and learned what we needed to learn, what this guy provided to us. But he shortened the cycle time, just like what Adam was talking about, you know. And so that was a huge thing. So I would just say, if anybody's wondering, well, should I get a coach? Should I get a, be a part of a group? Here's some things that I've found that are really important questions to be asking yourself. One, do I understand what my why is? Like, why am I really doing it? Am I doing it because I need to be seen and be heard? Or is it because I really have a need and I'm willing to be vulnerable and talk with somebody? What are your defined goals and what are the metrics for success? You need to really think about what are those things. And then, can I make a commitment to do it honestly. You know, it's like I had a coaching client that paid me $100,000 a year, and he went from 28 million to he's like about 90 million now, and that was, you know, in 5 years. Young guy, but he had in many ways he struggled with the coachability thing. He loved making his team, and they learned a lot, and I think he did too, but this was typified. So your story, Adam, is hilarious about your wife, because he was paying a pretty well-known trainer here in town that's very good. He has about a million followers on Instagram. And he's like, why am I not seeing results? I'm paying you a lot of money. And he wasn't afraid to pay money. And the trainer says, well, here's the deal. You're always 15 minutes late for your 45-minute session. You never follow your meal plan, and you're looking at your phone all the time. So you tell me. And you got to be coachable. You got to understand, are you committed, or are you just going through the motions? Hey, well, I'm paying a lot of money. You got to put in the work. Then the next thing I'd say is, like, are you finding the right expertise? You've got to find somebody. Just because they're your brother-in-law's nephew's friend doesn't mean that they're any good. You know, you got to find expertise matched up with chemistry. Like, can you trust them? Can you drop your guard? Because it comes down to being really honest. And then the next final question is, like, do you need a group, or do you need a specific coach that really needs to work primarily with you and or your management team? Because those are different. Organizational excellence, where you are in a peer-to-peer group, where you've got let's say you're the CEO and you've got your COO or your visionary integrator in the EOS world. Those two people from each organization are meshed with another 5 groups or so, different entities. And so there's this collaboration, but then you go back and you self-implement. You may not like that. You may say, I just want to be with other CEOs. Okay, well, that's a different thing. That may be more like a Vistage or C12 or a Pinnacle or something like that. Or Jeff Wolfberg's CEO Focus. I know Joe Gass. I introduced him to those guys, and we've got a lot of friends, Spencer Luter's, other people that are with Jeff. And again, I think he's really, really good. Joe, if you're still on here, I'd love to hear any thoughts from you, if you're willing to share anything that has benefited you from being part of these groups. And sometimes you need to be in both. And I've been in multiple groups based on different desires and what at the same time what the need is. I wanted to be with a bunch of tech guys, and even though I'm not a tech guy, they included me, and there were reasons for that. There have been others that I wanted to be with, other just real connectors and intentional connectors, others that I wanted to learn from, that had things that I felt like I needed to strengthen in my own life. So Joe says Jeff Wolfberg is awesome. 3 exclamation points. It's awesome. So is his C12 group. So that's interesting. So he's in 2 different groups, different purposes. C12 group with Derek Rogers and Tony Tenero. So I think that's really awesome. They each group has a different kind of purpose. So what we've seen is the people, and this is a true statement from everybody that's been on the Anything But Typical podcast to the clients that we love serving the most at BGW, lifetime learners that have some humility, that are willing to put in the work and being willing to be vulnerable. They're the ones that accelerate faster. Would you agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think, on the subject of putting in the work, here's kind of another lesson learned, that I'm gonna get his name wrong, Jesse Eisler, if you guys listen to the guy, I'm pretty sure I got his last name right. It's the guy that owns the Atlanta Hawks, that does a lot of motivational speaking, but I think he founded like NetJets or whatever, and then his wife founded Spikes. But he's the guy that made David Goggins, because he wrote a book called Living with a Seal, and that seal was David Goggins. And then right after that, David Goggins came out with Can't Hurt Me. But my point in saying all that is he's got a great post that just talks about kind of the concept of habit stacking. And if you ever never read the book Atomic Habits, Atomic Habits, a great book. But his comment was, dude, if you think about it, it's like change can seem overwhelming, but if you could think about like doing one big thing a year that you otherwise wouldn't have done, and maybe one little thing a quarter, at the end of 5 years, you've done 5 big things and you've made 20 pretty dramatic habit improvements. So I think what happens a lot of times when you get a coach, you get a CEO, it's like, you get thrown this, you're screwed. Well, where do I start? Start with the thing that's going to kill you the first. Pareto rule applies. Go with the thing that's going to kill you the fastest. So I think the same concept applies here, where it you really, when you get this advice, it can seem overwhelming, but if you can just focus on like, what's one change I can do a quarter, like EOS talks about having 1 rock a quarter, or a couple rocks a quarter, like it's the same concept. But if you can even scale that back and can I just do one, one per person, like one change per person per quarter, that's a positive benefit, that crap really adds up, as long as you're consistent doing it. And it's like, same concept with diet and exercise. Like, look, I mean, if I can just, actually hit the gym and work out hard 5 days a week for 30 minutes, that's better than not doing it at all, or doing it haphazard, So that's the other piece of advice that I found in terms of like seeing the rocket ship, really, really take off for people. It's when they are committed to making, incremental improvements.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just put in the chat, it's Jesse Itzler, so you're close, but it's Mark Heatjet, and he partner in Zico coconut water, in addition to owning the Atlanta Hawks, which is interesting. Yeah, I think there is no substitution for putting in the work,
Right.
No, and so that's where that being really honest with yourself about what's your why are you going to do it? Because if it is because, oh, well, somebody told me to do it, well, that's what CEOs and that's what founders do. It will be inconvenient after the first time or two. No, I guarantee you. And then it's going to just test you as to, is this worth doing or not? And then if you're not honest about and get serious about the why, you're going to waste a lot of time and money. Joe chimes back in here. Jeff's great mix of monthly CEO roundtable and amazing business advisor coach. That's one thing about Vistage, and I'll just talk about Vistage because we had a lot of guys in our private equity group that were in Vistage and Tiger 21 and some of those others, YPO. But in a roundtable like a Vistage, the key is the right chair, I think, and then the right mix, because the right chair, meaning like they're the head of the roundtable. Dave Zerfoss, who took Husqvarna from 100 million to $1 billion or something like that. He's actually been on the Anything But Typical podcast. So listen to that. If you guys like listening to podcasts, that's a good one. I think they're all good, but he talks about there's a lot about mindset but that was something that I've seen Adam really, like, he really wanted to be part of that. I'm like, dude, go for it, because that's the right one. And it's chemistry and the mix of what is it that you're seeking. Find somebody who has expertise in that you connect with to help you. I've got a funny story that ties into golf, and I suck at golf. But I was at the Harris Y. This was about 3 or 4, probably 4 years ago. It was before COVID, 4 or 5 maybe. And PGA Tour was in town, and there are these two guys in the locker room, and they've got English accents, and I'm like, oh man, these guys are new, and they didn't know that they didn't have towel service. So one guy goes, oh, they don't have towels here. He goes, I'll go to the front. And somebody had told me, yeah, you can buy towels at the front. It beats the heck out of paper towels. So the guy goes and does that. And so I asked this other guy, who's really scruffy looking, long hair and everything. I said, so is this your first time at the Harris Y? Knowing it was. And he says, yeah, it is. I said, well, what brings you here? And he said, oh, the golf tournament. And I'm thinking that this guy is a roadie, like, because they worked for weeks and weeks and weeks. And he says, oh, I'm one of the players. And I said, oh man, I'm sorry. I'm actually known on the tour as the world's worst golfer. And my business partners literally did call me swing tragic. And so he thought that was funny. And I said, I don't really follow. What's your name? And he said, Tommy Fleetwood. So he's one of the best golfers in the world. And so I said, hey, I just did this little video because I was thinking about this, like, why would Tiger Woods hire a swing coach who cannot hold a candle to him on the course? Why would he hire that guy to be a swing coach? And it was about outside perspective. That was the whole thing. It was a little 60-second kind of a funny video. And Tommy watches it and he goes, yeah, you got it right. He goes, there are players and there are coaches, but we all need somebody outside to give us a perspective and help us see what we're not seeing. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So a couple of days later, it's still during the practice round, I'm having tea at the Starbucks at Quail Hollow, by Quail Hollow. It's at it's Quail Hollow in Carmel Road. And I'm with a friend of mine who's just a die-in-the-wool golfer, Carmel Country Club guy, etc. And we're having tea, and Tommy Fleetwood and his caddy walk by, and I could see Breck looks at him and he's like, Tommy Fleetwood, right? And so Tommy stops at the door. He turns around, looks at me, he goes, oh, hey, mate, I didn't recognize you with your clothes on. And so now he didn't ever see me naked. I was in a towel. But the whole point, and it was so funny, but even that guy at the highest levels of their industry, they spend a lot of money on coaches that, quite frankly, aren't as proficient as they are in certain things. But why do they do it? Outside perspective. So I think that's the whole point. If you're not involved, get involved, and you don't have to pay money. Like if somebody's like, man, our cash flow sucks, I can't really afford it. Well, that's fine. Start one. I started a thing called the C3 Roundtable, connecting, community, and collaborating. That was what the 3 C's were, because I needed to connect with other connectors when I came back to Charlotte. Start your own. Get really serious about what you're looking for. Oh, here's another one. Joe, thank you for this. He's like, one of the greatest values of C12 is we have monthly key person groups using the same curriculum for his 4 management team members. This helps develop our team and keeps us aligned. Man, that is so good. Alignment and focus. If you can do that with your management team, each management team member goes to a different group. Very cool. Thank you for that plug. Tony Tenero will be very happy about that. Joe. Again, if somebody's on this and they go, hey, I'd like to get involved with somebody, but I just don't even know where to start. send me an email, and I'm happy to kind of listen a little bit more what you're looking for, and I'll help connect you to the right group. It's GFREY at trustbgw.com, GFREY at trustbgw.com. So any other questions or thoughts out there from y'all regarding outside advice? What's the difference between a coach and a consultant? It's a good question. Any other like tax? We aren't going to go into legal stuff because, you know, we've got Jack moving kids into dorm rooms or whatever. So also, just so you know, as a matter of a public service announcement, we're going to be out next week. So it's my 40th wedding anniversary officially next week. So I am out of here. Adam is off next week as well. And so unless Jack wants to do the Jack and Jack show, or maybe he wants to do something, I don't know. I'll ask him, but be prepared that we may take a week off next week as kids are getting back to school and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. People are winding down for the summer. So, which is hard to believe already. Can you believe it? Summer is almost over. Gosh, I hate it. I love the summer. Any other thoughts? Besides, you know, Adam would pay Joe to have coffee with him if he has a Starbucks gift card from Jack.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
And those Starbucks gift cards, I mean, it's $25, so you'll each get one drink. So there you go. Any other questions or thoughts from the gallery? A little kind of quiet group today, but still not bad. Adam, any parting thoughts or words you might have?
You know, not really, other than to reinforce that that, you know, you just gotta be honest enough with yourself about whether or not you're willing to put in the work related to what either a group or some, you know, a coach is going to tell you. And frankly, it you know, 99% of the time, the change required that you're going to have to do, the primary motivator is pain. You know, so you need to either, you know, you gotta find your pain. And that pain may be, I can't ever take a vacation, can't ever leave, you know, I'm never gonna be able to sell this place because it's entirely too dependent upon me. You know, I've been doing this for 10 years and I feel like, you know, I haven't moved forward. I'm not, you know, making any more money, you know, than I could if I just were working for some. I'm like there's all sorts of stuff that if you really dig deeply in terms of, are you really living the life that you wanted to as an entrepreneur? You know, I mean, you know, I can say yes, you know, in the sense of like, I'd take this over Ernst and Young any day of the week. And at the same time, if I can truly reflect back on the things that I want to change, I can find the pain that I need to be a motivator. Doesn't mean that I need to be a jerk to everybody else around here about it, but I can find that pain, because otherwise nobody, you know, it's tough to find the motivation. So just, you know, think about in that context of like, look, if I really were to take a moment to reflect, am I really am I really satisfied with where I'm at? And if not, you know, is the pain of not having that satisfaction? Notice I said satisfied, not happy, you know, because happiness comes from doing the right stuff, you know. So is that pain of not being satisfied with where I believe that, you know, things really ought to be or could be, if I was willing to put in the effort, then, you know, you'll make the change. If you can't find that pain, maybe you will, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so we got another chat here. Oh, Joe, you've been so good today, man. So another amazing resources of change for me and our business is working with Stephanie at BGW. Oh, I'm going to tell her that. She's always pushing me to improve and grow our business more effectively. You just made my day for saying that, and I'm going to make her day for telling her what you just said, Joe. So thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being on here. Appreciate it. Enjoy next week without us, and hopefully we'll have you back for week 172 in 2 weeks. And you guys have a great rest of the day. We'll put this thing up on the BGW CPA YouTube channel later on today. Oh, so Shirag. All right, thanks. I'll tell them both. Thank you, Joe. See y'all. Have a good one.